For more on COP15, I'm now joined by Andrew Deutz, who's attending the event. He is Director of Global Policy, Institutions, and Conservation Finance for the Nature Conservancy. Andrew, thanks very much for taking time. We appreciate it.
Pleased to be here.
Some sobering information coming out. Recognition of the planet's 8th billion person, but a condemnation and a claim that we collectively are at war with nature. Now, how do we take these dramatic comments and peel them from the front page and get people, all people, to take this threat seriously?
Well, the first thing to recognize is how much importance nature is to, right? The air we breathe, the water we drink, and the food we eat. From an economic perspective, nature provides about 50%, or at least 50% of the value of the global economy depends on nature, and a healthy nature. And then there's an emotional value to it, right? Nature is what we look to restore ourselves and feel better. So first was just to recognize that we need to halt and reverse the loss of nature and transform the global economy to become nature positive in order to ensure that we have a sustainable world for ourselves and our children.
Now, you're up there, so you're hearing all this, so of course it's hitting home. Now, COP15 is also recognizing China for taking the lead on a major environmental agreement for the first time. How significant is this?
Well, China holds the presidency of the conference, right? China has the responsibility to manage the diplomatic process to get us to an ambitious outcome. So this is really China's show. China hosted the first part of the conference in Kunming and now is hosting the second part here, but it still holds the main responsibility to ensure that we get an ambitious set of targets and really a blueprint for governments and for the private sector to transition the world to a nature-positive future by the end of this decade.
Well, let's talk a bit more about China. What you think about China getting headlines in a perhaps positive way concerning the way it has dealt with the environment for so many decades?
Well, China's come a long way. The last global set of targets were adopted in Japan in 2010 and set a target for countries to achieve 17% of their terrestrial and marine protection. China has achieved that, and now with its ecological red line strategy, I think is poised to go beyond that. The other critical thing is to recognize what's going on outside of China that China impacts. So Chinese officials have now begun to recognize the importance of managing the supply lines of everything that's coming into China as China produces and consumes, and ensuring that the products that are coming into China are not driving deforestation or degrading agricultural ecosystems elsewhere. So it's a really critical role that China plays both domestically and as a major player in the global economy.
Andrew, the big thing a lot of people want to know, are we as a global society close to meeting all the demands to dramatically reduce carbon emissions and keep the Earth's temperature from rising 2 degrees in the coming decades?
So we have to solve both the climate crisis and the nature crisis simultaneously. And the critical thing is that nature actually is part of the solution. Now, unfortunately, we're continuing to degrade nature, and you look at a whole range of indicators of whether it's species extinction or land conversion getting worse. But we know that nature actually can solve at least a third of the climate solution by protecting our forests, restoring forests, improving the way we grow our food, sequestering carbon in agricultural ecosystems. We can also manage nature to provide protection against storm surge, sea level rise, extreme heat, and extreme flooding. So nature is not just a victim of climate change, it's an essential solution provider to the climate problem. And we can't solve climate without solving the nature crisis, and we can't solve the nature crisis unless we also solve the climate crisis. It's one planetary crisis, but there are solutions that are practical and cost effective.
Andrew, we certainly appreciate your time. We had some very sobering pictures running underneath you. Hope the message hits home. Thank you so much for taking time.